Oh my God! In the midst of a bone-chilling blizzard, who could have imagined a war veteran hearing a heart-wrenching cry for help from Mustang horses? In a dilapidated log cabin deep in the Rockies, Caleb Turner thought the world had long forgotten him. But that night, the frantic sound of hooves, the anguished whinnies echoing through the storm, stirred his frozen heart awake. Before his ice-covered wooden gate, two Mustangs trembled, their wide eyes pleading desperately for life. Caleb hesitated, then the gate swung open. He had no idea that from that moment, his battlefield past would reignite, not amidst bombs and bullets, but in the snow-white wilderness against cold-blooded poachers. Would Caleb only save the horses, or had he unknowingly stepped into a new war? The wind howled through the mountain pass, whipping up blinding swirls of snow like a white curtain shrouding the world. Caleb Turner's rickety log cabin groaned under the storm's weight, creaking ominously in the dark. He sat by a small fire, his calloused hands feeding a log into the flames, the faint warmth flickering across his deeply lined face. Beside him, his dog Shadow lay curled up, ears pricked in quiet alertness. Then, suddenly the sound of hooves broke through. Distant at first, like a dream's echo, then clear, urgent pounding. Caleb frowned. No one rode horses in a storm like this. He stood, threw on his faded army coat, and grabbed a storm lantern. When the door swung open, icy wind lashed his face, stinging to the bone. In the lantern's flickering glow, he saw them. Two horses staggering before the gate. An adult Mustang, tall and proud, its eyes blazing in the dark, its mane tangled with ice. Beside it, a young foal, nearly collapsing, its breath steaming in thin wisps, legs trembling. Caleb froze. These wild creatures rarely let humans near, yet tonight, they stood at his doorstep, as if begging. His chest tightened, memories flooded back. The desperate eyes of comrades in Afghanistan's deserts, waiting for a saving hand. The sight before him was too familiar. Shadow growled, fur bristling, eyes fixed on the dark forest beyond. Caleb raised the lantern, scanning the icy white expanse. Amid the falling snow, he glimpsed or imagined a faint, moving light, small like a flashlight. His heart quickened. In these mountains, not everyone came to help. He turned back to the foal. Its eyes were cloudy with exhaustion, its front legs scratched and bleeding. The adult Mustang stepped forward, shielding its young, ready to charge to protect it. In the dim light, its eyes gleamed with urgency. No words were spoken, but Caleb heard clearly. Asterisk. Please open the gate. Give us a chance. Asterisk. He hesitated. Instinct screamed to slam the door shut. Wild horses brought trouble, disease, poachers, even nature's wrath. But his heart, the human part, still alive within him, whispered, asterisk. If not you, then who? Asterisk. Caleb sighed, his hand trembling as it touched the gate's latch. A faint metallic click cut through the wind, chillingly distinct the sound of a gun being loaded. He froze, listening. Then silence. Only the wind's howl. Maybe he'd imagined it. Maybe, but he wasn't sure. Finally, he shoved the wooden latch open. The gate swung wide, snow swirling in, and the two Mustangs stumbled into the yard. The foal collapsed, gasping, while the adult lowered its head to Caleb as if in thanks. He signaled Shadow to stay calm, then quickly led the horses to an abandoned wooden stable behind the house. Inside, he covered them with old straw, then found antiseptic to bandage the foal's wounds. His rough hands trembled as they touched the creature's warm skin. How long had it been since he felt life so close? So long he'd forgotten his heart could still stir. The wind still raged outside. In the dim light, Caleb's eyes darted to the deep forest. The darkness swallowed everything, but he couldn't shake his gaze. Something was out there, maybe a trick of the mind, maybe a real threat. He clenched his fist, whispering to himself, "If this is fate, then I must step into it." In that moment, Caleb didn't yet know that opening his gate to these wild creatures would pull him into a new battle, one he thought he'd left behind forever. All right, dear listeners, if you're enjoying this story, drop a 1 or comment "I'm still here" to keep listening. The night grew late, but the blizzard showed no mercy. The wind screamed through the mountain gaps, mingling with the clatter of snapping branches to form a chaotic, eerie symphony. Inside the stable, Caleb knelt beside the foal, his calloused hands gently wiping ice from its wounds. Its breath was faint, its chest heaving as if every rise was a fight for life. The adult Mustang stood nearby, its large eyes gleaming with vigilance and caution. It didn't attack or flee, only watched Caleb's every move. In that gaze he saw worry, but also a faint gratitude. A silent bond formed, fragile as a flame in the storm. Shadow, his loyal dog, kept his eyes fixed on the stable door's gap. At times, he growled low, hackles raised, sensing something beyond human perception. Caleb glanced over. Only thick darkness and swirling snow, but his heart wasn't at ease. He stood, stepping outside with the storm lantern. The stable door opened, and icy wind rushed in, nearly snuffing the light. Caleb pulled his coat collar higher, squinting. Out there, in the blinding white, a tiny light flickered, then vanished. Not a star, the sky was choked with gray clouds. Not a hallucination, he'd seen that light from the cabin earlier. It moved, rhythmic, like a flashlight in someone's hand. A chill ran down his spine. Who'd be out here in a storm, on this night? A ranger? A lost traveler? Or the ones he feared most, poachers? Caleb crouched, inspecting the snow near the gate. Beneath a thin ice crust, deep footprints stood out. Large, the tread of hunting boots, not standard snow gear. They led into the forest, then vanished in the wind's churn. He frowned. No sign they'd left. That meant they were still nearby. He returned to the stable, but his mind lingered on the tracks. Looking at the exhausted foal, he understood. These horses weren't just fleeing the storm, they were running from someone. And now, that someone was at his doorstep. Inside, he pulled a military first aid kit from an old iron cabinet. His fingers trembled as he opened the antiseptic bottle. War memories surged, blood scent, explosions, fallen comrades. He forced himself to focus on the present, on the small life needing him. With a clean cloth, he bandaged the foal's wound, stabilizing it for the night. As he worked, a sharp crack echoed from afar. Not wind, not a breaking branch. Caleb's ears, trained by gunfire, knew instantly. A round being chambered. Shadow snarled, lunging toward the door. The adult Mustang whinnied a warning, stamping hard on the wooden floor. The air thickened, as if all sensed the danger closing in. Caleb gripped the lantern's handle, scanning the darkness beyond the stable door. He saw no one, but instinct told him eyes were watching, hidden in the forest, cold and patient. He quietly snuffed the lantern, letting darkness swallow the stable. In the night, only the foal's ragged breaths, the howling wind, and his own pounding heart remained. He knew if those strangers were poachers, opening the gate tonight wasn't just compassion, it was the start of a fight for survival. Caleb sat back against the wooden wall, clutching his old hunting knife. He looked at the Mustangs, feeling a strange connection. For years he'd fled the world, duty, even memories. But now, fate had drawn him into another battle, not for himself, but for these innocent lives. The wind shifted, shaking the stable door. Amid the howl, he caught a faint, distant voice. Real or a trick of the storm, it chilled him to the bone. Caleb whispered, almost a vow to himself, "If they've come this far, I won't back down." He didn't know that in a few hours, a woman would appear, bringing a truth that would change everything. And that flickering light wasn't an illusion, it was a signal of a journey fiercer than the blizzard outside. The flashlight blinked again in the forest, closer now, clearer. A figure moved through the snow, heading straight for the stable. Savior, or enemy Caleb must face? And before we continue the main story, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Oh, and drop a comment below to let us know where you're watching from. We love hearing from you. The flashlight in the stormy night grew sharper, blinking like a beacon in the endless white sea. Caleb stood motionless in the stable's darkness, his breath mingling with the howling wind. Shadow growled low, body tense, sensing danger. The adult Mustang snorted sharply, ears upright, eyes fixed on the light, while the foal huddled under straw, its breath faint, nearly fading. A small figure emerged, stumbling through the snow, soaked parka hood hiding their face. The stranger approached the fence, raising both hands to show no weapons. As the wind tore back the hood, Caleb saw a pale woman's face, her bright brown eyes reflecting the lantern's glow. Despite the cutting cold, her gaze held a strange resolve. She entered the stable with slow steps. The adult Mustang backed away, mane bristling, but Caleb's presence kept it from charging. The woman removed her gloves, her frost-reddened hands trembling as she reached for the foal. No hesitation, only gentle urgency. From an old backpack she pulled herbs, small syringes, and bandages, prepared for a rescue. Caleb watched silently, letting her work. Her movements showed she knew Mustangs, each touch, each soft breath, each whispered comfort. The foal flinched as the needle touched its skin, then relaxed, sinking into a peaceful sleep. The adult's anxious eyes softened, replaced by hesitant trust. In the dim light, Caleb noticed a plastic tag loosely tied to her jacket, its text blurred by dampness, a work ID from a Mustang conservation group. Pieces clicked in his mind, the tracks in the forest, the horses' panic, the strange light trailing them. They weren't just escaping the storm, they were fleeing a darker force. Poachers. The wind shrieked through the wooden slats, flinging powdery snow inside. Caleb pulled his collar higher, eyes lingering on the 3 lives before him. In that moment, he realized how fragile their existence was. The foal could die from cold or infection if unprotected. The adult could collapse if pursued further. And this stranger, risking her life in the storm to stand by them? Silence weighed on the small stable. Only the horses' heavy breathing, the crackling fire nearby, and the wind's wail outside. Caleb sat against the wall, clutching his hunting knife. War memories flooded back, fallen faces, breaths fading in his hands. Those days, buried deep, returned because of a small horse's pleading eyes. He glanced at the woman, seeing unspoken faith in her brown eyes. Without words, Caleb knew she was part of this puzzle, the final link to the Mustang's fate, and somehow, he'd become part of it too. Outside, a low-engine rumble echoed through the valley, blending with the storm. Caleb tensed, muscles waking after years of dormancy. They were close, no longer an illusion. Headlights swept through the snow, slicing the night like cold blades. In the small stable, every creature's breath slowed, as if all sensed the truth. Tonight wasn't just about the storm, but a real enemy. As Caleb gripped his knife, he knew his solitary life had reached an irreversible turning point. The blizzard raged on. The wind lashed the wooden roof, making the cabin groan, its cracks splitting wider as if to burst. The engine's sound echoed from the valley, now faint, now near, like a drumbeat of doom. Caleb knew time was running out. Staying meant handing the horses to the enemy. He led Samantha to the storage shed, where an old snowmobile sat, covered in dust. Its steel frame rusted, paint peeling, but the engine was intact. His hands, familiar with machinery, brushed off dust, checking bolts and worn cables. Meanwhile, Samantha prepared the foal, wrapping its injured leg in thick cloth, adding a wool blanket for warmth. The adult Mustang never left its side, its breath steaming in tense white clouds. When the engine roared to life, its sound tore through the camp silence, a beacon to anyone lurking. No choice now. Caleb attached a sled, piling dry straw as a makeshift bed for the foal. Samantha held the reins, guiding it aboard. The adult circled anxiously but allowed itself to be tied. They left the camp in darkness, the snowmobile's headlights slicing the storm, leaving fleeting golden trails. The wind screamed, hurling snow into their faces, stinging like needles. Caleb gripped the handlebars, the sled shaking as it glided over rough ice. Trees' shadows loomed, blurring in their vision. Samantha clung beside him, eyes fixed on the horses. Each hoofprint in the snow was a fragile mark between life and death. The foal stumbled, shaking the sled, but the adult's determined whinny pulled it back, urging it on. Their invisible bond of kinship outmatched any storm. An engine roared behind, closer now. Headlights swept the snow, glinting off trees like predatory eyes. Caleb tightened his grip, heart pounding. In the wind's howl, he heard metal clanking weapons against steel, signaling their pursuers weren't just here to scare. They veered into a narrow path toward a canyon. Sheer cliffs rose like an icy coffin, tight but shielding from direct view. Yet it meant no escape if cornered. Caleb stayed silent, eyes scanning the terrain. War memories surged. Maps, gorges, trapping enemies with the land itself. He killed the headlight, letting darkness swallow them. Only faint white glows from the snow remained. The horses stopped, panting, steam rising. Samantha stroked the foal's neck, calming it. Caleb tossed a metal scrap far off, its clatter against rock echoing. From behind, headlights flared brighter. The poacher's sled roared closer, engine growling. Caleb knew they'd caught their trail but not their exact spot. In that instant, he felt life's fragility, not his own but those entrusted to him. The wind swirled, snow stinging like knives. Yet, amid the chaos, Caleb felt a strange strength rise. For years, he'd lived quietly, dodging duty, sealing his heart. But now, in the storm, with danger closing in, he knew he couldn't retreat. He gripped the handlebars, signaling Samantha to secure the horses. The sled swerved, plunging down a slick slope, leaving the poacher's furious roars behind. Each jolt shook the sled, the foal faltering. But the adult held steady, a living shield. The blizzard enveloped them, wind trumpeting war. The canyon darkened, only the pursuers' flickering lights trailing. Caleb's calloused hands trembled not from cold but from knowing the first clash was moments away. Gunfire echoed through the canyon, bullets grazing stone, sparking red before fading. The adult Mustang whinnied, stamping wildly, shielding the foal. Samantha clutched the reins, pale with panic, while Caleb held the handlebars, leaning into each violent swerve. They'd been spotted. The poachers knew their path. Sled engines closed in, mixed with coarse shouts. In the blizzard, headlights danced on cliffs, casting ghostly figures like demons. Caleb knew this canyon was the perfect trap for prey. He killed the engine, gesturing sharply. The horses halted, breath steaming in white plumes. The storm masked sound, but Caleb's war-honed ears picked out footsteps sliding on ice, metal clinking, safeties clicking off. They were closing in from two sides, pinning them in the narrow pass. Caleb scanned the terrain. The left cliff loomed, heavy stones sagging under snow. A hard hit could trigger an avalanche, buying time. He inhaled, old instincts reviving the instincts of a soldier surviving merciless ambushes. He stepped from the sled, leaving Samantha and the Mustangs behind. Each step sank into snow, slow but resolute. Shadow followed, hackles up, ready to pounce. The poachers advanced, flashlights cutting through snow, casting cold beams. Caleb grabbed a sharp rock, hurling it at the cliff. The sharp crack echoed, triggering a small avalanche, ice crashing down, blocking their view. Angry curses followed, giving Caleb precious seconds. But they weren't fools. Shots rang out, bullets embedding near, scattering debris. Caleb dove into a narrow crevice, sliding through snow, pressing low, heart racing. He pulled an old flare from his coat, a war relic, and ignited it. Red fire blazed, reflecting off ice like spilled blood. The sudden light startled the horses, their whinnies piercing, but it disoriented the poachers. Caleb tossed the flare into a loose snow pocket on the cliff. The small heat broke the balance, and snow roared down, massive ice blocks sealing the path. Furious shouts drowned in the avalanche's rumble. Samantha pulled the fold clear, trembling but steady, eyes flashing hope amid panic. Caleb returned, restarting the engine, the sled roaring as it sped through the storm. The headlight tore the snow, guiding the struggling Mustangs. The canyon widened, but danger lingered. Caleb knew the snow only stalled the poachers. They'd find another route, and the hunt would resume. His hands gripped the handlebars, joints creaking under wet gloves. Snow lashed his face like tiny blades, but no hesitation remained, only a soldier's fire, back on the battlefield. Samantha glanced back, meeting Caleb's icy gaze. She knew he'd become the horse's shield, and this journey wouldn't end until their lives were safe. A distant thunder rumbled, snow thickened, wind fiercer. In the canyon's heart, Caleb's headlights sliced the night, leading the small group deeper into the storm. The poachers' shouts echoed, muffled by snow walls. The battle had just begun, and Caleb knew he'd chosen a path with no return. Dear listeners, take a moment to relax, maybe grab a glass of water, and keep listening to this gripping tale. Drop a 1 if you're hooked, and don't forget to subscribe. Gunfire thundered, ricocheting off cliffs like war drums. Sparks flashed as bullets struck cold stone, scattering into the wind-whipped snow. The Mustangs panicked, whinnying wildly. The adult stamped hard, shielding the trembling foal, its breath ragged. Samantha gripped the reins, eyes wide with fear, while Caleb clutched the handlebars, body leaning into the sled's violent lurches. The narrow canyon was a giant trap. Towering cliffs stood stark against the blizzard, forming a blinding corridor with no escape. Behind, sled engines roared, headlights slicing the dark, revealing cloaked pursuers in heavy parkas. They closed in like wolves sensing trapped prey. Caleb killed the engine, letting silence and darkness hide them. The horses stopped, breath steaming in white clouds dissolving into the night. Amid the wind's howl, he caught distinct sounds: boots sliding on ice, metal clanking, weapons softly chambering. Sounds he'd heard 1,000 times in war, now echoing in a new setting. Yet the feeling was the same, blood surging, mind razor sharp, body in survival mode. He studied the terrain. To the left, a sheer cliff with heavy stones, snow poised to collapse with a jolt. To the right, massive ice blocked the way, unbreakable. Caleb knew he couldn't fight head-on. He had to make the blizzard his ally. He stepped from the sled, leaving Samantha with the horses. Each footprint sank into snow, slow and firm. Shadow trailed, silent, awaiting orders. Caleb grabbed a large rock, hurling it at the mountainside. The sharp crack echoed, triggering a small avalanche, ice crashing down, obscuring the pursuer's view. Curses echoed, buying Caleb a breath. But they didn't quit. Shots rang out, bullets embedding in rotten wood behind him. Caleb dove into a narrow crevice, sliding through snow, pressing low, breath steaming thick. His hand dug into his coat, pulling an old faded flare, a war remnant. He ignited it, red fire blazing, casting eerie light on the ice. The sudden glow startled the horses, their whinnies chaotic, but it froze the poachers, eyes dazzled. Caleb hurled the flare into a cliff's loose snow. The small heat destabilized it, and the mountain shuddered. Snow poured down, massive ice sealing the path, drowning the poachers' shouts in the earth's heavy roar. Samantha pulled the fold clear, hands shaking but resolute, eyes blending panic and hope. Caleb restarted the engine, the sled roaring, speeding through the storm. Its light tore the snow, guiding the struggling Mustangs. The canyon widened, but Caleb knew the snow only delayed the poachers. They'd find another path, and the hunt would persist. His hands gripped the handlebars, muscles alive with a soldier's instinct. He was no longer the recluse hiding in the woods, but a commander of a small, desperate band lives depending on him. The blizzard raged, wind like 1,000 tiny blades slashing his face. But Caleb's heart no longer fled. A heavy duty rose, steadying each step. He wasn't alone anymore. This time, he swore no one would be left behind in the storm. A sound cut through the blizzard, not the wind's howl. Faint, trembling, desperate, a horse's whinny from the white abyss. Caleb knew instantly, not the foal he protected, nor the adult by his side. Another life, lost in the thick snow. He slowed the sled, engine growling low, headlights sweeping the murky dark. Samantha tensed, eyes tracing the sound, hands tight on the reins. The adult Mustang raised its head, ears twitching toward the call, muscles taut as if sensing kin. The foal weakly lifted its neck, breath faint, whimpering softly. Their family instinct charged the air with urgency. Caleb signaled, steering the sled into a narrow path along the mountainside. Wind lashed his face, cold piercing his skin. The deeper they went, the clearer the whinny, mixed with sharp clatters, hooves slipping on stone, a body crashing on ice. His headlight finally caught a dark shape in a crevice. A young Mustang appeared, nearly collapsed. Strong but gaunt, skin clinging to bones. One hind leg was trapped in snow, unable to break free, its thick coat matted with ice. Breath halting, eyes dim with despair. It no longer whinnied, only shivered, as if surrendering. Caleb stopped the sled, stepping into knee-deep snow. His boots sank, body heavy against the relentless wind. Samantha followed, clutching medical supplies, hands trembling. The Mustang raised its head weakly, eyes flashing fear and defense. As Caleb neared, it thrashed, but its strength was gone, sinking deeper. Wordlessly, Caleb knelt, his calloused hands digging around the trapped hoof. His fingers numbed, but he didn't stop. Memories of pulling comrades from bomb craters surged, muscles recalling the cost of abandonment. Samantha knelt too, eyes fixed on the bleeding wound. She wrapped it with cloth, stemming the flow. Their breaths mingled in the storm, urgent, burning in the brutal cold. After a struggle, the hoof broke free from the ice. The Mustang collapsed, trembling. Caleb used all his strength to lift its heavy neck, urging it up. It staggered but stood, eyes sparking with life. The adult whinnied, a rallying call. The young one raised its neck, answering weakly, a sign it still lived. Samantha injected painkillers, hands shaking from cold and stress. Caleb guided the horse toward the sled. The storm pounded, snow piling around them, wind howling like the mountains' cry. Yet, amid the chaos, the uneven clop of hooves rang out a fragile but steadfast song. They tied the young Mustang to the sled, adding straw and cloth for warmth. The herd, now 3, stood together, their eyes gleaming with unbreakable bonds. The foal nuzzled the newcomer, seeking familiar breath. The adult stood close, eyes shining with strange faith. Caleb watched, his heart aching. For years, he'd cut himself off, buried memories, rejected duty, yet in days, he'd become the lifeline for a wild family. Their wordless eyes spoke clearly. He was their last hope. Far off, the engine's drone returned, low and persistent, a reminder of dwindling time. Caleb tightened his hood, eyes glinting with resolve. He'd let no one touch these horses. Not again. As Caleb and Samantha secured the third Mustang to the sled, the air shifted. The wind paused for seconds, an oppressive hush, as if the storm held its breath. Then, a light flared in the canyon, a faint golden glow flickering in the snowy haze. Not lightning, not moonlight, another sled's headlight, closing in. Caleb's heart clenched. He'd known this moment was coming. The poachers wouldn't quit, their engines' growl, heavier and fiercer than his old Charlie, echoed off cliffs like a predator's snarl. Samantha froze, clutching her medical bag. The adult Mustang stamped, breath thick, sensing danger at its back. The foal flinched, eyes wide with fear. The new horse tried to lift its head, body heavy with exhaustion. Caleb said nothing, striding to his pack, pulling a hunting rifle. Its cold steel felt familiar in his hands, reviving the discipline and survival honed in war. He crouched, rifle at his hip, eyes locked on the approaching light. Figures emerged through the snow. 3, clad in black parkas, hoods hiding faces. Their eyes glinted as headlights reflected. Long rifles gleamed on their shoulders, ready to rise. They moved in a line, a moving wall blocking Caleb's escape. The wind roared back, snow lashing like whips. Time stretched endlessly in the chaos. Part of Caleb wanted to fire, but another knew one wrong move could doom the horses. He needed distance, needed timing. Samantha stood behind, eyes fixed on him, silent. She knew a sound could tip the scales. The 3 horses huddled, bodies pressed in survival's instinct. Their breaths synced with Caleb's pounding heart drumming in his mind. The gap closed. The poachers stopped 10 meters away. One raised a hand, signaling clearly. The wind drowned sound, but Caleb understood. They wanted him to back off, to surrender the Mustangs. He didn't move. His hand gripped the rifle, back bent, feet firm in snow. His eyes were cold, resolute. For a moment, the storm faded, leaving only 2 sides staring through the white veil. The poachers stepped forward, but Caleb raised his rifle higher, slow and deliberate. They halted. A fierce gust swept the canyon, snow blinding, headlights flickering. The scene became a surreal battlefield. An old soldier facing 3 hunters, behind him 3 wild lives trembling on the edge of survival. Caleb stayed silent, letting the storm's roar warn for him. His eyes spoke, asterisk. Not one step closer, asterisk. Time stretched, though only seconds passed. The poachers glanced at each other, light glinting off ice-covered hoods, hesitation in their moves. Finally, one raised his rifle to his chest. Caleb aimed instantly, finger on the trigger, breath held. The wind howled, light flashed, freezing the moment like a memory. Tense silence before the world exploded. The adult Mustang whinnied, its cry echoing through the canyon. The foal answered with a trembling moan. The new horse stirred, struggling to rise. Their fragile life, resonating in nature's fierce sound, made the scene sacred. Caleb's heart blazed. This wasn't just a fight against men, it was a battle for a chance at life. A bond fate had placed in his hands. His eyes locked on the enemy's barrel. A gust shook the headlights. In that instant, Caleb knew the decisive moment had come. A shot tore through the storm, echoing off cliffs, lingering like thunder. The horses reared, whinnying, hooves churning snow. Samantha dropped, clutching the foal to keep it from bolting. Caleb stood firm, rifle raised, eyes fixed on the 3 dark figures. Gun smoke drifted in the wind. A scorch mark on nearby stone showed the shot was a warning or a miss in the storm. But the balance broke. Tension flooded the air. The poachers shifted, closing in, weapons gleaming in the flickering headlights. Caleb inhaled, heart pounding heavily. His soldier's instinct returned fully, recalling desert standoffs amid dust and fire. But now, he fought not for an army or orders. This time, it was for the 3 fragile lives behind him and for himself. A chance to atone, to find purpose. The wind lashed the canyon, snow blinding, headlights wavering as if swallowed. In that murky moment, Caleb crouched, sliding left, using darkness as a cloak. He fired, the bullet striking snow near the leader's feet, kicking up a white plume. Angry shouts echoed, the others scattering, rifles aimed at nothing. Samantha pulled the horses into a safer rock nook. The adults snorted, mane bristling, ready to charge. The foal pressed against it, while the new horse, limping, stood defiantly, eyes sparking faint life. The standoff became a race against time. Caleb used the shifting wind, moving fast in the dark, firing shots to slow the poachers' advance. The blasts echoed, blending with the storm, turning the canyon into a maze of disorienting sound. They shouted, but the blizzard swallowed their calls, leaving only misdirected echoes. Another flare ignited, red light soaring, reflecting across snow. In its eerie glow, Caleb appeared like a battlefield ghost, advancing then vanishing, forcing the enemy back. It was a tactic from distant wars, reborn in America's wilds. Suddenly, a new engine roared. Headlights swept the canyon from another direction. The Rangers had arrived, responding to Samantha's earlier signal. Sirens wailed, piercing the storm. The three poachers faltered, hesitated, then fled, their forms fading into the snow like ghosts never there. Caleb lowered his rifle, chest heaving, breath hot in the freezing cold. He turned, seeing Samantha kneeling by the Mustangs, eyes teary but strong. The foal lifted its head, breathing steadier. The new horse trembled but stood, while the adult guarded them, eyes blazing like a warrior's. In the Ranger's headlights, the scene turned sacred. 3 wild lives, briefly safe, huddled like a family through hell. Caleb stood still, shoulders heavy but heart warm for the first time in years. He'd kept his silent vow, leaving no one behind. As the conservation team's truck approached, Samantha guided the foal aboard, eyes full of gratitude. Caleb said nothing, only resting a hand on the adult's neck. It didn't flinch, didn't fear, but lowered its head in a quiet farewell. Its deep black eyes met his, gleaming with a profound bond, etched into his memory. The blizzard still raged, but in Caleb's heart, another storm had calmed. He realized this fight wasn't just for the Mustangs, it was to save himself. A second chance sent through these wild lives. The stormy night ended, but its echoes lingered. In the quiet cabin, Caleb sat alone by the fire, its small flames flickering like his rekindled heart. Outside, the 3 Mustangs were safe. Their image huddled together, trusting eyes before parting burned in his mind. For years, living in solitude, Caleb thought his life was just a silent wait. But these wild creatures gave him a chance to fight again, not for war, but for life. And in protecting them, he found reason to protect himself. The blizzard would pass. Poachers might return. But hope had ignited. Perhaps one day, Caleb would hear hooves echoing again, signaling that the bond between man and nature never fades. This isn't just a story of rescued Mustangs. It's a tale of compassion, of second chances we all deserve. If you believe every life deserves protection, leave a comment. What will Caleb do when he hears hooves calling in the night again? Share your thoughts, and follow the channel for the next chapter of this journey.